The history of the Tibetan Empire is a fascinating tale of conquest, expansion, and cultural development. At the heart of this empire was the visionary ruler, Songtsen Gampo, whose reign marked a significant turning point in Tibet's history. The Tibetan Empire emerged in the 7th century CE under the leadership of Songtsen Gampo. Before his ascension to the throne, Tibet was a collection of small and fragmented tribes. Songtsen Gampo was born in 617 CE and was the son of the Yarlung dynasty's local chieftain, Namri Songtsen. As a young prince, Songtsen Gampo displayed great ambition and military prowess. He set his sights on unifying the Tibetan tribes and expanding his dominion beyond the plateau. One of the most crucial decisions he made was to forge diplomatic and matrimonial alliances with neighboring powers. These alliances played a crucial role in consolidating and expanding the Tibetan Empire's influence. Songtsen Gampo's most significant diplomatic move was marrying Princess Prakuti of Nepal and Princess Wenxing of the Chinese Tang dynasty. These marriages not only solidified Tibet's relations with powerful neighbors but also introduced Buddhism to Tibet. The influence of these two princesses, particularly Princess Wenxing, led to the adoption of Buddhism as the state religion of Tibet. Before that, Tibet had been primarily practicing Bon, an ancient animistic religion. With the introduction of Buddhism, Tibet began to see the flourishing of religious institutions and cultural exchanges with India and China. Under Songtsen Gampo's leadership, the Tibetan Empire expanded rapidly, with successful military campaigns extending the empire's borders. He conquered parts of China and Central Asia, and his empire reached as far south as the northern regions of the Indian subcontinent. The capital of the Tibetan Empire was established in Lhasa, which would remain the political and spiritual center of Tibet for centuries to come. Songtsen Gampo's vision for his capital city led to the construction of numerous significant structures, including the Potala Palace, which stands as an iconic symbol of Tibetan culture and heritage. The reign of Songtsen Gampo laid the foundation for the Tibetan Empire's golden age. His military conquests and diplomatic endeavors not only expanded the empire but also fostered cultural exchanges with neighboring regions. The spread of Buddhism and the development of Tibetan script during this period were pivotal in shaping Tibetan culture and identity. However, it's essential to recognize that the Tibetan Empire faced challenges and periods of decline after Songtsen Gampo's reign. After his death in 650 CE, internal strife, external invasions, and geopolitical shifts contributed to the eventual decline of the empire. By the mid-9th century, the Tibetan Empire had fragmented into smaller kingdoms and principalities, marking the end of its imperial era. Despite its eventual decline, the legacy of the Tibetan Empire, especially under Songtsen Gampo's rule, has had a lasting impact on Tibet's history and the development of its unique culture and identity. The figure of Songtsen Gampo is still revered in Tibetan history, folklore, and religious traditions, and his reign is remembered as a defining period in Tibet's past. Following the decline of the Tibetan Empire, Tibet entered a period of political fragmentation, known as the Era of Fragmentation or the Tibetan Interregnum. During this time, various local rulers vied for power, and the central authority weakened significantly. Despite the disintegration of the empire, the cultural and religious legacy established during Songtsen Gampo's reign endured. One of the notable developments during the era of fragmentation was the preservation and further dissemination of Buddhism in Tibet. The religious foundations laid by Songtsen Gampo and the influence of the Nepalese and Chinese princesses contributed to the growth of Buddhist monastic institutions and a flourishing of religious scholarship. The spread of Buddhism became a unifying force among the Tibetan people, helping to sustain their cultural identity in times of political instability. The post-imperial era saw the emergence of influential Buddhist teachers and scholars, including figures like Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, who played a significant role in disseminating Buddhist teachings throughout Tibet and neighboring regions. The integration of Buddhism with indigenous Bon beliefs also occurred during this period, leading to the development of what is now known as Tibetan Buddhism. Tibet's political landscape began to change in the 13th century with the rise of the Mongol Empire, led by Genghis Khan and later his grandson, Kublai Khan. In 1240, the Mongols invaded Tibet, and although they didn't establish a permanent administrative presence, they maintained a level of influence over the region. This marked the beginning of a complex relationship between Tibet and the Mongol Empire. In the 14th century, Tibet faced further challenges when the Yuan dynasty, founded by Kublai Khan, was overthrown by the Ming dynasty, restoring Han Chinese rule. Tibet initially recognized the authority of the Ming emperors but maintained a degree of autonomy in their internal affairs. It was during this period that the title of the Dalai Lama was established. The first Dalai Lama, Gendun Drub, was posthumously given the title by Altan Khan, a powerful Mongol leader, in the late 16th century. Subsequent Dalai Lamas became not only spiritual leaders but also key political figures, playing important roles in Tibet's governance and diplomacy. Tibet's political autonomy, however, faced a major challenge in the 18th century with the expansion of the Qing dynasty, the last imperial dynasty of China. The Qing dynasty sought to exert more direct control over Tibet, and by the mid-18th century, Tibet became a protectorate of the Qing Empire. Over the years, the Qing dynasty's control over Tibet fluctuated, and tensions between the Tibetan authorities and the Qing government persisted. This situation continued until the early 20th century when political turmoil in China, including the fall of the Qing dynasty in 1911, gave rise to significant changes in Tibet. In 1913, Tibet declared its independence from China, and the 13th Dalai Lama reaffirmed his authority as the ruler of an independent Tibet. However, this independence was short-lived, as Chinese forces entered Tibet in 1950, asserting their control over the region. Tibet was formally incorporated into the People's Republic of China in 1951. The Chinese occupation of Tibet has been a contentious issue, with many Tibetans advocating for greater autonomy or outright independence. The situation has led to protests and international scrutiny, with human rights organizations calling for the protection of Tibetan cultural identity and religious freedom. The history of the Tibetan Empire and its subsequent developments remain a complex and evolving narrative. The legacy of Songtsen Gampo's reign, with its cultural and religious contributions, continues to shape Tibet's identity and the aspirations of its people in the face of contemporary challenges.